Look around you. The room you're sitting in, the screen you're watching, the people around you. Everything feels real. But how do you actually know? Well, let's dive into this. Today, we're opening an explainer that digs into a seriously mind-bending question, one that some of the greatest minds in physics and philosophy are actually taking quite seriously. What if everything you've ever experienced is part of something much bigger? What if advanced civilizations could eventually build simulated worlds so incredibly realistic that we have to ask ourselves if we're actually living in the original, based reality? I know, it sounds like pure science fiction, but the logical foundation behind it, it's absolutely fascinating. Section 1. The Simulation. File number 022. So, we're diving straight into the deep end of the rabbit hole today. Let's clearly define what we're actually talking about here. The simulation hypothesis. It's basically the theory that our entire reality could be an artificial environment, created by a vastly more advanced civilization. Now, to be super clear, we aren't talking about a Matrix-type situation, where physical human bodies are hooked up to tubes in the real world while their brains get fed a digital illusion. No, we're talking about an incredibly advanced cosmic architecture, where there is literally no physical body outside the machine. In this scenario, our universe, our physical laws, our evolution, even our consciousness itself, it's all entirely digital code. The conscious beings inside this system, they would genuinely believe their world is real, because to them, it's the only reality that has ever existed. The whole foundation of this theory really relies on the staggering, exponential growth of our own technology. I mean, just think about it for a second. 40 or 50 years ago, the absolute cutting edge of digital entertainment was Pong, literally just two white pixels bouncing a square across a black screen, right? Today, you have a device sitting in your pocket that can connect to sprawling, photorealistic virtual realities. We have generative AI that can instantly create images, voices, entire complex conversations on demand. If humanity managed to achieve that in just a few decades, imagine what technology could do after thousands or even millions of years of uninterrupted development. Could an advanced civilization eventually create a simulation so deeply complex that the digital beings inside it simply couldn't distinguish it from base reality? It really makes you wonder. Section 2. The Argument. Nick Bostrom's 2003 trilemma. Back in 2003, Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom published this famously terrifying statistical argument. He wasn't just boldly claiming that we're in a simulation. Instead, he laid out a logical framework known as a trilemma. Bostrom argued that for any intelligent species, one of three distinct possibilities has to be true. Option 1. Civilizations never become technologically advanced enough to create massive, universe-sized simulations. Like, maybe they inevitably destroy themselves through war or ecological collapse before they get there. Option 2. They do become advanced enough, but for some reason, maybe ethical concerns, or honestly just a lack of interest, they simply choose not to run these kinds of ancestral simulations. Or, there's option 3. They don't destroy themselves, and they do choose to create them. So the really crucial point here revolves around that third option, because if a civilization reaches that godlike level of computing and decides to start running simulations, well, they wouldn't just run one. They'd probably run millions, maybe billions of them. Statistically speaking, if option 3 is true, you are highly, highly likely to be an observer inside a simulation right now. Why? Simply because the artificial minds would outnumber the biological ones by like 1 billion to 1. But wait, let's pump the brakes. We have to be completely objective here. This entire philosophical house of cards rests on some massive, unproven assumptions. We simply haven't proven that a conscious mind can actually be synthetically simulated, or that a universe-sized computer could physically even be built within the constraints of reality. Section 3. Theory and Complexity. The Code versus the Cosmos. This brings up a really fascinating debate, pitting the fundamental nature of our universe against the unimaginable scale of computing power it would actually take to fake it. On one side, you have theorists pointing out that the mathematical nature of physics feels remarkably computational. The universe seems to operate on these strict mathematical laws, rules, and constants. I mean, some physicists even wonder if space and time have a fundamental resolution, or like a pixel size, known as the Planck length. But then, on the other side of the debate, reality might simply be way too complex. Think about the sheer, dizzying scale of the cosmos for a second. Hundreds of billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, an uncountable number of subatomic particles constantly interacting with each other. The computing power required to continuously track and render every single quark across the entire universe would be unimaginably enormous. We're talking numbers that might be mathematically impossible, even for a civilization that's billions of years ahead of us. Now, to bypass that immense, frankly paralyzing computational nightmare, some theorists suggest an advanced civilization might use a clever shortcut. It's actually exactly like what a modern video game developer does. A sprawling open-world video game doesn't render the entire virtual universe at maximum detail at every single moment, right? It focuses its processing power only on what the player's camera is currently looking at. Perhaps a simulated universe operates the exact same way, generating high-resolution physical detail only when a conscious being is actively observing it. Some people playfully compare this to quantum mechanics, where subatomic particles seem to exist in a state of probability until they're observed and measured. It's a wildly fascinating analogy, for sure, though it is important to note that this is strictly a fun comparison. We currently don't have any hard evidence that the universe operates using literal rendering tricks. Section 4, the glitch, searching for flaws in the code. So this idea of a programmed reality naturally leads people to look for symptoms of the system breaking down or, taking a shortcut. You've probably seen this major internet phenomenon. Forums, subreddits like Glitch in the Matrix, viral videos, they're full of people who are completely convinced they've caught the simulation slipping up. They insist that unexplained events, a really powerful sense of déjà vu, seemingly impossible coincidences, or seeing the exact same person walk by twice, they say these are actual proof of glitches in our reality, exactly like a software bug in a computer program. But again, we gotta look at this impartially. A strange psychological experience is not automatically confirmed evidence of a digital simulation. We have to ground this in actual science. The human brain is incredibly prone to apophenia, which is the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between completely unrelated things. We are biologically wired to seek out patterns, and we are highly susceptible to confirmation bias and just plain misremembering things. To definitively prove a glitch, we would need falsifiable evidence. We'd need something that actively and measurably distinguishes a simulated universe from a biological one. And so far, despite all the spooky stories online, there is no scientifically confirmed simulation glitch anywhere on record. Section 5. Can we prove it? The inescapable paradox. This brings us to the most paradoxical and honestly kind of unsettling problem of the entire hypothesis. If we are in a simulation, how do we actually prove it? It poses an incredible challenge, because any experiment we perform, any mathematical equation we use, any giant particle accelerator we build, it all happens entirely inside the very reality we're trying to investigate. It's exactly like a video game character trying to inspect the physical microchips of the computer running their game, but they're forced to use only the fictional in-game items they're programmed to hold. Even the laws of physics we use to test our universe would theoretically just be lines of code written by the creator. Using the code to test if you're in the code, it's an endless, impossible loop. And things get even stranger and, induce a bit of conceptual vertigo when we consider the opposite trajectory. Let's suppose humanity survives its current challenges and eventually builds a perfect simulated world of our own. Inside that world, the simulated civilization doesn't know they're simulated. They evolve, they eventually develop their own supercomputers, and they create another simulated world. And then that digital world creates another. Theoretically, kind of like Russian nesting dolls, you end up with infinite layers upon layers of simulated realities, continuously nested inside one another, endlessly spiraling down. So, out of all those infinite layers, how would anyone in any of those worlds ever know which one was the true original? You could be sitting in base reality right now, or you could be an observer in layer number 4 million, completely unaware of the billions of digital worlds above and below you. Ultimately, the absolute biggest problem we face with the simulation hypothesis is a total, undeniable lack of hard evidence. Possibility is simply not proof. Don't get me wrong, it is an incredibly intriguing philosophical concept regarding consciousness, technological advancement, and probability. But in science, the fact that something could mathematically happen, or that it logically makes sense as a cool thought experiment, does not mean it has actually happened. We have to separate philosophical pondering from falsifiable physics. The unsettling but deeply profound takeaway of our explainer today is that whatever the actual answer is, you have no way to step outside of your current existence to compare it to an objective external truth. Your reality is the only one you have access to. And perhaps that's exactly why it shouldn't matter if the universe is made of physical atoms or digital code. The experiences you have, the emotions you feel, the connections you build with the people around you, those are entirely undeniably real to you. And in the end, that subjective experience is all any conscious being can ever truly own. Maybe reality is exactly what it appears to be. Or maybe we have been inside it all along. The Enigma Files. Every mystery has a file.